Hey there, brave souls. Welcome to Only True Horror, where real stories crawl out from the shadows.
Dare to watch.
It began when Claire, an antique collector from Boston, discovered an old mirror at a Salem estate auction. The seller warned her it once belonged to a family accused of witchcraft in 1692, but Claire only laughed. That night, she hung the mirror in her living room, unaware that the reflection was not hers alone. Something else stared back, waiting to be seen. The next morning, Claire paused by the mirror and felt uneasy. Something about her reflection seemed off, slower, softer. When she tilted her head, the reflection hesitated before copying her. Her pulse quickened. She stepped closer, studying her own eyes. And then, her reflection blinked, but she didn't. That night, the house was silent, except for a faint whisper. Claire froze when she realized it was coming from the living room. The voice was soft, like a woman calling her name from far away. As she approached the mirror, the air turned cold. The whisper grew into a slow, trembling breath. Then the reflection's lips began to move, but Claire hadn't said a word. The following evening, Claire stood before the mirror again. At first, everything seemed normal until her reflection smiled. She hadn't moved. The grin widened unnaturally, stretching too far across its face. Then it raised a hand, but Claire's arms stayed frozen at her sides. For the first time, she realized she wasn't looking at herself anymore. Claire tried to ignore what she saw, but that night the mirror refused to stay silent. As she passed it, her reflection slammed both hands against the glass, the sound echoing through the house. The surface rippled like water, and for a moment she saw her own face, twisted, screaming, trapped behind the glass. She stumbled back in terror, as a faint handprint appeared on the outside of the mirror, still dripping wet. Shaken and sleepless, Claire searched through old records from the auction house. One name appeared again and again: Abigail Ward, a woman accused of witchcraft in Salem, 1692. Locals believed she trapped her soul in a mirror before she was executed. Claire's blood ran cold as she looked at the old photo attached to the file. The face was the same one she had seen in the mirror's reflection. That night, as the clock struck 3, Claire heard her name again, but this time it was clear, calm, and close. She turned toward the mirror. The reflection moved before she did, whispering, "Set me free." The air grew thick and cold. Claire's breath fogged the glass as she whispered back, "Who are you?" The reflection smiled faintly and answered, "You already know." Terrified, Claire decided to cover the mirror. She threw a white sheet over it and whispered prayer. For a moment, silence. Then the fabric began to move, slowly, as if someone beneath it was breathing. The sheet lifted and fell to the floor on its own. When Claire looked again, her reflection was gone, but a pair of hands pressed against the inside of the glass, trying to get out. Claire invited her friend Rachel over to see the mirror, hoping another person would calm her fears. As Rachel stepped closer, the reflection shifted violently. Her own face twisted into a scream she hadn't made. Rachel stumbled back, eyes wide, as the mirror rippled like water. From inside, Abigail's pale, dripping figure emerged just enough to whisper, "You brought her to me." Panic consumed both women as the lights flickered and the air turned icy. Desperate, Claire grabbed a hammer and swung at the mirror. The glass shivered but didn't break. A cold wind erupted, throwing her across the room. From inside the reflection, Abigail's pale face pressed forward, eyes black and unyielding. The mirror vibrated as if alive, murmuring Claire's name. She realized, with terror, that destroying it was impossible. It had claimed its new host. Claire called a paranormal investigator, hoping to rid the mirror of Abigail's presence. He arrived with cameras, EMF detectors, and protective charms. As he stepped into the room, the mirror fogged over, and Abigail's face pressed against the glass. The air grew icy, and objects trembled. The investigator warned Claire, "Some spirits don't leave, they claim." The mirror seemed to pulse with anticipation. As the investigator began the cleansing ritual, the mirror reacted violently. The glass rippled and darkened, throwing shadows across the room. Candles toppled, furniture skidded across the floor, and a cold wind slammed the women against the walls. From within the mirror, Abigail's pale hands reached outward, trying to grasp them. Claire realized the mirror was not just haunted, it was alive, and it would fight to keep her inside. The investigator chanted prayers and traced protective symbols around the mirror. The glass trembled, Abigail's face contorting in rage. For a moment, the reflection stilled, her hands pulling back. Claire breathed a shaky sigh, thinking it was over. But the mirror's surface rippled, hinting that Abigail's power was only partially contained. The room felt heavier, the shadows darker, warning that the terror was far from finished. Even partially contained, Abigail's power grew stronger. Objects in the living room began to move on their own. Chairs slid, books flew from shelves, and the chandeliers swayed violently. Claire ducked as a vase shattered near her feet. From a mirror, Abigail's pale face watched, smiling cruelly, her black eyes following every panicked move. The mirror wasn't just a reflection anymore. It was the center of the chaos. Claire felt it first in her sleep. Nightmares of Abigail's face, whispers echoing long after waking. By day, her reflection seemed slower, less like her own. Friends noticed her distant, trembling hands. Every glance toward the mirror sent a shiver down her spine, as if Abigail was feeding on her fear. The mirror had begun to claim more than just attention. It was claiming her sanity. Determined, Claire approached the mirror with trembling hands, clutching a charm the investigator had given her. She stared into the glass, trying to force Abigail to respond. The reflection smiled, then twisted into a scream, echoing through the room. Cold air surged, rattling the furniture. Claire realized she wasn't confronting a reflection. She was confronting a living spirit that had made the mirror its prison and its weapon. Suddenly, the mirror shimmered, and Claire's reflection froze, trapped inside the glass. She tried to scream, but no sound came. Abigail's pale hands reached toward her from within, pulling at the edges of the reflection. Claire staggered back, realizing in horror that the mirror didn't just reflect life, it could steal it. Every heartbeat echoed with a terrifying thought. What if her body remained outside, but her soul was trapped forever? The room darkened as Abigail's power surged. Claire's reflection moved independently, mimicking her actions with cruel exaggeration. The ghostly figure stepped forward inside the glass, its black eyes locking onto Claire's. The air grew icy, and the walls seemed to close in. Every attempt to escape felt futile. Abigail had taken control, and the mirror had become a gateway for her to cross into the real world. With Abigail fully in control, Claire and the investigator performed a desperate ritual. Salt circles, protective charms, and incantations filled the room. The mirror pulsed violently, shaking the walls. Abigail's face twisted in fury, hands clawing through the glass. Claire held her ground, chanting, hoping to force the spirit back into the mirror. Every second stretched into eternity, the room trembling under the ghost's wrath. The ritual succeeded for now. Abigail's face faded from the mirror, leaving only a faint mist curling inside the glass. Claire collapsed, exhausted but alive. The room was silent, yet the mirror still held an ominous presence, a warning that the terror could return. She knew one thing for certain. The mirror would always watch, always wait, and those who dared look too closely might never escape. The mirror remains, waiting for its next victim. If you dare to witness the full story of Abigail and the haunted mirror, don't turn away. Subscribe to Only True Horror, where the real terrors never end. Watch carefully, because some reflections are closer than they appear.